climate risk in the region, in the sub-region, and sub-economic vulnerabilities and its economic impact there. And what we are expecting from the panel discussion are a few points which I just want to narrate here, and then we will start discussion. The policy and practical recommendation for integrating local indigenous knowledge into modern anticipatory action protocols, identification of gender responsive and inclusive strategies for equitable climate adaptation in mountain communities. And third is a roadmap for customizing climate modeling and early warning systems specific to the HKH region. Fourth one is actionable strategies for mainstreaming anticipatory action findings into national and sub-national policies promoting long-term ecosystem and livelihood resilience. So we have with us all the panelists. To start with, I would request my friend Mr. Idris Masood, member DRR NDMA, for his opening remarks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, my dear senior colleagues, experts, and activists for mitigating, adapting to climate change, and also disaster risk reduction in Pakistan. We highly value such interactions and events as organized by SDPI. These not only bring together practitioners and policymakers and also the activists together, but also create an environment where serious and fruitful discourse can take place, and ultimately leading to educating the all of us, but particularly triggering policy responses from policymakers in Pakistan. At National Disaster Management Authority, we primarily deal with mitigation, the whole spectrum of disaster management. That includes from mitigating, preparedness, rescue, relief, recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. And our mitigation is actually disaster mitigation. It's sometimes, confused with the climate mitigation, which is a different thing. And we primarily deal with the adaptation, which is part of, as we understand. The National Disaster Management Authority is, though it's dealing with multi-hazards, that also include geophysical hazards and human-induced hazards, but hydrometeorological hazards that have been now primarily due to climate change have posed a serious challenge to our resilience. And National Disaster Management Authority, rather the whole National Disaster Management System, which includes PDMAs and other stakeholders at federal level, are geared to respond to this in a befitting manner. What we have done is we at the federal level, though the disaster management is a devolved subject, but the provinces have felt in the past, primarily in the wake of devastating earthquake of 2005, to deal with it in a holistic manner and in a manner of whole of nation manner. That is why the provincial assemblies of all the provinces, they, through an Article 144 of the Constitution, requested the Federation to come up with the legislation which is comprehensive and deal with the whole spectrum of disaster management, and that is why we have National Disaster Management Act. Now, since climate change is posing a serious threat, and we are one of the, unfortunately, the most negatively impacted and worst impacted country, We have seen it, the wrath of negative impacts for the past 2 decades. And according to our assessment, we are losing, 1 to 2 billion US dollars on annual basis as average losses to such hazards. Uh, our fiscal risk assessment studies suggest 1.2 to 1.5 billion dollars in 2015. We are updating that. Uh, and that is, it is both from low intensity, high frequency disasters and high intensity and low frequency disasters that we saw in 2010, in 2011 and 12 and 2022, and recently now just this year 2025, and we are expecting we will have further even more serious shocks in the years to come. So we need to be prepared for that. We are trying our bit. We are trying to coordinate among the national stakeholders. We have already have a national policy, DRR policy. We are required to have policy and implementation frameworks at national level. Though there are some implementation responsibilities of the federation, but mostly it is provincial, and also at a district level. We now have fairly strong institutional structures at federal and provincial level, but unfortunately our district level structures need to be strengthened more, and also the local level structures that can assist, patronize the communities with the latest technologies, with latest wherewithal to fight the challenges and mitigate the impacts, reduce the impacts of disasters, though we cannot completely get away with those, but we are aiming to reduce the impact as far as possible through our DRR policy and now our National Disaster Risk Reduction Strategy, of which the cornerstone is anticipatory actions, and also comprehensive early warning systems, particularly the risk communications part of it, so that our communities and all stakeholders, all responders are aware of what is likely to happen and how and all those measures that can be taken to reduce the impact of such disasters. And we are also working on trying to, since we cannot completely, do away with the happenings, we need to transfer our risk. And for that, we are working on risk transfer strategies, disaster risk financing, for which we are looking at very keenly climate finance opportunities globally also, and we are trying to have our own solutions also. So anticipatory action is something which the government of Pakistan, the National Disaster Management Authority, considers as one of the most potent tools which is available in the aftermath of credible early warning till the actual onset of disaster, where we can minimize the impact, particularly at least on the human losses. And that has been exhibited even during the recent unfortunate swelling of our rivers on eastern side, where we saw we evacuated over 3 million people beforehand, which was a part of the anticipatory action framework implementation. We all understand that the communities were, though at times they are reluctant to move out, but at times we have to force it, and we did that. We need to facilitate when they are evacuated through camp management, all relief provision. We not only try to evacuate them, but also facilitate their other assets, particularly livestock. And since we were bracing for the impact in Sindh also, there the PDMA and did a wonderful job in Punjab by evacuating timely, and the PDMAs in Sindh also beforehand, they had to establish over 500 relief camps. They had identified communities to be evacuated, and even the livestock were vaccinated, and all those measures were taken which were humanly possible within the resources of our country and our people. We also tried to generate resources through our national resource, particularly the industry, private sector, besides our very potent humanitarian sector that contributed a lot. Now, we are trying to have the national implementation of the national disaster risk reduction strategy through all our partners, including like active stakeholders, all sitting around this table. And SDPI is one of our key partner in all these, risk knowledge gathering and then directing it, and policy frameworks, and also piloting of such implementation of such good interventions. Now the need is to further equip the communities, guide them, assist them, and inculcate those methods that can help them withstand such shocks beforehand also, and once they faced such shocks, they are able to recover from them as soon as possible. For this, we are also looking at, as I already mentioned, risk financing solutions. One such initiative that we would like to take is focus on anticipatory finance. One good example that I would like to give you is of the Biparjoy, where we evacuated over 33,000 people from those likely to be impacted areas, and we had we didn't had even a single loss of life. Thanks to our very proactive measures by the government. There will still be some challenges like we had to face in Buner, where we will not be able to do much, but still we can have long-term mitigation measures there, DRR measures there, by having very good infrastructure, by having prepared communities, by further strengthening our early warning systems as far as possible. And for that, we would like to have more collaboration and more focus on research. And for that, this think tanks like SDPI and experts like Ma'am Aisha and others, they'll continue. We hope that they'll continue to contribute. And since we need to first know where our challenges are, we also would like to focus on knowing it early, as you all are aware that we have tried our best after floods 2022 to come up with the National Emergencies Operations Center that can give us a solution from end to end, and we at least bridge the gap of a very strong national coordination forum at national level, and we are now working on replicating that to the provinces and further to the district level. About the cryosphere analysis and interventions there, we are aiming to have a very sophisticated, you can say, emergency operations center, or a center that can gather all that data. Our hope and our aim is to establish it right there in Skardu or Gilgit, and have those. It will be a very good blend of technology, local knowledge, and expertise that already exist to find out new ways and methods of how to deal with the melting glaciers, with the glacial lake outburst flooding, how to tackle those challenges and reduce the impact of such hazards on the communities, not only because the communities living there will be facing it directly, but it doesn't mean that the communities downstream are not being impacted. They are being impacted even in a more serious manner in the form of food security and challenges of livelihood. So we hope that we will continue to work on this in a more coordinated manner, and it has to be an effort of, as I always say, whole of nation, where it's everybody's business. And we hope that we will have some good takeaways from this gathering also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Idrissa. for your wonderful thoughts and particularly connecting the policy to implementation from the center to the very grassroots level, the community, and your thrust and focus and way forward that it is the time that we need on the communities, telling them early what is happening. So I think this is whole approach is very much needed. And thank you very much for all this work you are doing at NDMA. And thank you very much for guiding people like us, those who are going to field and telling us what need to be done, connecting with communities. So your leadership is always good. And I just want to let you know, the audience, that we are working with under guidance of Idris Saab and NDMA on the National Anticipatory Action Strategy. I think, and that consultation goes on around that as well. We had a full session yesterday. You want to
Sir,
add?
just one thing which I would like to, since taking the opportunity of being here and have very young and fresh minds, maybe some of them are very good scientists or tech people. Uh, if not through your media channels, we would like to spread this mission. I'm just coming from a conference, internal conference within the NDMA, where the chairman NDMA and our tech team and all our NDMA team is. Is trying to have organize the first disaster early warning tech exposition, and we were taking this opportunity. I would like to invite all of you to. We are looking at new technologies available, new innovations that can help us improve our early warning systems and risk communication part of it. Also, we would be looking at mitigation measures and adaptation measures, particularly of the climate change. But we are looking at niche technologies that can be developed and can be employed to offset our emerging and existing challenges. So, taking this opportunity, we would like to encourage all those who are coming up with any solution, softwares, gadgets that can help us in early warning or adaptation. Thank you.
Thank you, Drisab. I think this is very good because all tech young are here, so they have got your message. Thank you very much, Idrisa, for your time and the thoughts. Now I would briefly introduce the panel so that we start our discussion. We have Professor Dr. Babar Shahbaz, University of Agriculture, Faisalabad. He's also working with SDPI on one of our project in the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region, on which we are having this panel discussion. Then we have Madam Aisha Khan, CEO, MGPO, and you already acknowledge, and we all acknowledge her knowledge, work, guidance, mentorship. So before she will be there, and we always seek guidance from her and continue to seeking it. Thank you, Madam. And then we have from the community, Awais Ahmed Saab from SIF, from Chitral. Yeah. And then we have Mia Muhammad Junaid Sab, country director, Water Aid, because there are a lot of things related to water in the mountains. Thank you, Junaid Sab, for coming. And from the region, from Nepal, which is Hindu Kush Himalayan region, we have Kanchan Manidas. He's EDISET International, based in Kathmandu, Nepal. Welcome, sir. So this is the panel, and now I would request Professor Babar to start discussion, briefly touching upon what we are doing so that audience should know that our project, what we are doing there, and then of course on the policy issues.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shafiq.
And we have to finish by 1 also because there is a prayer arrangement also here. Today is Friday, so that's my request to be precise. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shafqat, for this quick introduction. And thank you, Idrisa, for setting the scene about the climate change and disaster that we are facing and we are going to face in future. So very quickly, there are some terms that will be used again and again in our talk. So first of all, the anticipatory adaptation. So we call anticipatory adaptation as the planned action that intend to reduce the vulnerability of the impact of climate change before they occur. So it is in contrast to the reactive adaptation, which respond to the climate change impacts after they have occurred or they are about to occur. And similarly, a very interrelated term is the foresight analysis. The foresight is basically exploring the multiple possible futures through scenario building, systematic planning, and acknowledging the uncertainty, which can shape the futures, not the future, they can shape multiple futures. And again, it is in contrast to the prediction and forecasting. So prediction is basically a singular probable outcome, which is driven by the statistical data and historical data and trends. So this is very quickly about the some terms that we'll be using. And as Shefka said, that we are doing a project with the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, EC mode based in Kathmandu. So it started in early 24 or late 2023 when some expert from EC mode, they visited Islamabad, and we gathered some experts from different agencies and institutions. And the outcome of that stakeholder consultation was that our policies are mostly reactive policies, reactive to climate change. And we generally ignore that there can be some unpredictable, or there are some critical uncertainty that can happen. So based on this, we started conceive the idea of starting a project on this anticipatory action to climate change and socioeconomic risks. So we used several foresight tools. So I will not explain most of these tools. I will directly, and this is still going on. We are now at the second year of the project. We have conducted several community consultative workshops in Swat and Chitral, and also we have done some expert meetings, and we have developed the scenarios, and now we are in the phase of the data analysis and generating the policy solutions based on the these scenario building exercise. So my, as Shafqat Saab has said, that our focus is on the HKH region, so which is also called as the third pole because of its unique ecological and geographical location. And the Hindu Kush Himalayan region of Pakistan is particularly highly vulnerable to multiple climate-related disasters. And vulnerability of this region has increased manifold due to the global climate change. And in fact, the consequences of climate change are visible in every sector of the region. And we have seen, as the Idris Sahab has also mentioned, a series of disaster since 2010, and almost every second year or every third year consecutively, we are facing the disaster, and most recently was the 2025 floods. And the melting of glacier in the HKH region is one of the major disaster, and also particularly the KPK and Gilgit-Baltistan are the most affected region in Pakistan if we talk about the HKH region and its vulnerability to climate change. And the response of the government is also at the same time there has been some institutional and legal response. For example, in 1983, the Pakistan passed the Pakistan Environmental Protection Ordinance, which instituted Pakistan Environmental Protection Council and Federal Environmental Protection Agency. Then we have in 1997 Pakistan Environmental Protection Act, and then in 2017 we have Pakistan Climate Change Act, which instituted three major instruments or institutions: the Pakistan Climate Change Council, Climate Change Regulatory Authority, and Climate Change Fund. So Pakistan Climate Change Council is very high profile council headed by the Prime Minister, and the provincial chief minister are part of it. The Minister of Environment and relevant agencies are part of it. And also Climate Change Authority, which is basically responsible for all these NDCs and to institutionalize. So what our analysis said that we conducted a comprehensive literature review and some consultations with the experts. So limited engagement of stakeholders, particularly at the grassroots levels in these acts and policies, and lack of vigorous enforcement mechanism to ensure compliance or to meet the national or international commitments. And And then we also have the climate change policy in 2012 revised updated in 2021. And then again, we have NDCs in 2016 and which were updated in 2021. And most recently, we had the National Adaptation Plan in 2023. With all these policy instruments, one can feel that we are fully equipped to address the current climate scenarios, but not only current, but also the future climate scenarios. And when we are talking about the subnational level, so in the HKH region, so Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province is one of the most active province among all other when we talk about the climate change related policies and institutional mechanism. So, for example, the climate change policy of KPK was approved in 2017 and it updated on 2022. Provincial Climate Change Action Plan was approved in 2022, in which the prioritization of mountain-specific adaptation has been mentioned, and also the equitable participation of women in all stage of the climate action has also been mentioned in this provincial climate change action plan and climate change policy. And then there are district level climate change plans and local adaptation plan of action. In Chitral, there is a very comprehensive district level adaptation plan. And also in Swat, there is a local adaptation plan of action. And in 2022, KPK also released its urban policy, in which the climate change issue, and particularly in the HKH region, in Chitral, Swat, and other mountainous region, this urbanization has also been addressed. So when we analyzed all these initiative and policy in the context of anticipatory adaptation, one can realize that the analysis of policies and action plans revealed that most are reactive, built around a singular vision of predictable future. For example, the recent 2025 floods in KPK exposed a serious gap in foresight and anticipation, as disaster preparedness measures and early warning system were either very inefficient or insufficient. They couldn't predict that such a huge flood can occur suddenly. So it was considered as a sudden. But the foresight analysis, foresight science says that sudden is not a word appropriate in the climate change. We can foresee, we can analyze based on the scenarios, based on the trends, based on the critical uncertainty, based on some weak signals. We can foresee for temperature, precipitation, sea level rise, climate-related extreme events. But climate change is not particularly driven by these very technical and statistical analysis. There are some sociological factors, technological factors, economical, environmental, political, legal, ethical. There are multiple factors which shape the future scenarios and under which the community adjusts themselves, and the policies should also have a look at these multiple scenarios. So the National Adaptation Plan, it generally overlooks the community-driven perspective. Community, they have their own perspective of climate change and they have their own adaptation strategies. We also conducted within this project a stock-taking exercise that how communities are addressing to the future climate change scenarios. So they have their own strategies and action, or maybe over community people, they would talk on it. So our National Adaptation Plan generally overlook the community-driven perspective on possible futures and the corresponding anticipatory adaptation strategies.
Why not?
Yeah, I'm coming to the conclusion. So the national and sub-national adaptation policies makes no reference to the potential future conflicts. So we identified three main drivers or three main scenarios which may change the future. So first of all is the conflicts. That what would be the future if conflicts are going on the same way, of they are reduced or if they are further escalated. So second is the migration. So there is a missing element of that, how migration trend would occur. And then the land use. So we also, again, our policy sees the singular version of the land use, but there are various factors which are changing the land use. There are various infrastructure development factors, technological factors, social conflicts, everything, which are changing the land use practices. So based on these three major trends, our climate change adaptation strategies, they can adjust to themselves. So another missing element is the clear consideration how land use will evolve. So there are some pathways that we have identified in our analysis. First of all is the consensus building among the stakeholder at national, provincial and local level that the future is inherently uncertain. And robust adaptation plans can be designed so that they perform well under different future scenarios. Secondly, integrating local knowledge and community perspective adaptation with the adaptation action plans and promoting community-driven adaptation with appropriate governance mechanism, funding and capacity building. And also vigorous advocacy campaign to embed system thinking. Again, I said that when we are talking about climate change adaptation, we are focusing on few sectors, on a few trend of temperature, precipitation and warming, other things, but it is a whole system which is driven by various factors. And also there is a need to incorporate migration foresight using scenario planning. Conflict assessment and community self-help initiatives also need to be integrated in our climate change adaptation plan of action. So finally, conducting a scenario-based land use planning under different critical uncertainties and trends, such as climate, migration, urbanization trend, disasters, to anticipate that how these trends and uncertainty may shape or reshape the land use plan or reshape the over all of the different sectors, be it the water sector, be it the agriculture, forestry, livestock, how they would shape in future. So we have to see the multiple scenarios, and then we have to adjust our policies, plan of actions, adaptation strategies based on these future scenarios so that we can effectively tackle the future risks and future vulnerabilities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Babar, for connecting the community's perspective and all what you have done, and particularly the study we have conducted out of this project. And two things are very clear here. One is that with anticipatory, here we have used foresight science also, foresight tools involved in it. So that is, it should be more than, just anticipating, but just on using foresight science also. Secondly, the land use, because these patterns were available there and which we connected. But earlier Idris Sahab said the connecting to the community. So we had consultation with communities, mountain communities for this project. So I guess these are the few things and few learnings which we have out of this study Professor Babar has shared with you. Thank you once again. And now from Islamabad, I will go to Kathmandu, but not via Qatar or Dubai. I will go online. So where my colleague Sabrini Tuladar from EC Mode is there. Sabrini, over to you. We want to hear, because you are looking this project regionally, with other countries are also part of. Over to you.
Hello everyone. It's really good to see you. I
Yes,
am
we can hear.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm sharing my presentation. I hope it's visible to everyone.
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Is it?
Go ahead.
Great. So thank you, firstly, Dr. Munir, and thank you to
We cannot
everyone.
hear, Sabrini.
We cannot? Is it better now? Can you hear me? Hello?
Sabrini, we are looking at technical end. Can you hear me? Yeah, unmute. Yeah, okay, please go ahead.
I cannot hear you, or can you hear me better now? I cannot hear. Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please. Wow. Go
Okay,
ahead.
okay, yeah, thank you so much. I can hear you now. Okay, thank you, Dr. Munir, and good morning to everyone. I'm Sabarnita Ladar, and I'm presenting today on, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Great, thanks. I'm presenting today on sustaining transhuman yak herding in Lower Mustang using the foresight approach. It is an honor to be part of this session with this esteemed panelist and our guests. Today, through my presentation, I want to highlight how anticipatory action in midst of the socioeconomic and the climate challenges that we are facing can be used to drive towards a more resilient future. So through this presentation, I also intend to offer a ground level view of the Lower Mustang of Nepal, where a century-old practice of transhuman yak herding is facing a silent crisis. For those who are not familiar, transhumans herding is a seasonal movement between two fixed points with the livestock. It is a traditional strategy adopted by many high mountain communities to cope with the climate extreme. This crisis isn't just about losing tradition, it is also about the disintegration of sophisticated system, the traditional system that has been pillar of climate resilience, food security, and cultural identity for these mountain communities. The area that we are looking is the site that we are studying is the Thasang Rural Municipality of Lower Mustang. It is a high mountain community and they're still practicing transhuman practices. This is an arid region, and over the years, it has seen a lot of climate changes like the erratic precipitation, snowfall, as well as the rainfall cycles, as well as increase in temperature. And this has actually exacerbated water scarcity issues and even disasters such as landslide, avalanche, flood, and also increased human-wildlife conflict incidents. So the object of this exercise was basically to analyze what are the climatic and non-climatic impact of the changes and changes particularly to the yak herding, which is a major livelihood source for the community, and to explore potential pathways to help sustain this practice in the future. So we've actually adopted a participatory foresight approach for this, where we've really implemented a set of participatory tools through a set of consultative workshops. And we've coupled this with focus group discussions and KIA interviews. We have ensured participation of the intersectional groups within this community to guarantee inclusion. So you might be wondering what's foresight. So foresight approach basically is conducted in 4 phases. First is a scoping where we understand the system. Then it is followed by mapping the system using a participatory method. After thorough understanding of the system and the different drivers of change that is affecting the system, we go into developing scenarios for the system, different potential alternative scenarios for the future. And based on that, we identify the outcomes we want for our desired future and design pathways and mobilize it towards achieving a system change towards the desired goal. And throughout this process, a GEI integration is very significant, an important part of this process, where we identify and recognize the different stakeholders within the system and also engage them throughout the process. So one of the exercises that we did was identify the different drivers of change, which is relevant at present and also for the future. And you can see it listed here. This is done using a tool called Steeple. The next, we identify the different actors that are in the system, that are integral to the system, that are being either influenced by the system or have an influence over system. And you can see the different groups of people that are important or different actors within the system here. The next, what we did is getting the information that we have, we actually mapped out the system to identify who are the actors, what are the processes, what are the behaviors of the system. And through this, we identify 5 integral elements of the system, which you can see on the left side of the presentation. And through this process, we were also able to identify few of the issues that have not become really a big issue at this moment, but it looks like the way it is going to change are going to be very important in how the system is going to react or change in the future. And one of them is water availability, the second is grazing area, and the third is the labor availability. So essentially, all these elements are critical factors that are going to determine how the system is going to react or evolve in the future. Through this process, we were also able to identify few or critical drivers that are going to be really significant in the future. The three that I would like to mention here is the labor availability, particularly determined by the migration patterns that is happening. There's a lot of out-migration in this area, as well as some in-migration by hired laborers, replacing that labor gap. The second one is the impact of climate change. Of course, it is very pronounced because it is very connected to the land and the environment. And the third is the potential economic benefit that the yak rearing would bring to the community and the people there. So understanding the system and then mapping them out, understanding the critical drivers of change for the future, we developed multiple scenarios for the future that are likely to happen in this future, potential future scenarios, and also identified the desired outcomes of the stakeholders they want from the particular system for the future, and develop pathways. Now, when developing this pathway, we also took into consideration the potential alternative futures and incorporated pathways to reduce maladaptation or improve adaptation of the communities into the pathways as well, to improve the resilience. So as you can see in this picture here are the few actions that they feel like that needs to happen to achieve that desired future. And also you can see on top the vision that they hold for the particular subsystem, which is the yak herding pastoralism for that particular place, which is Thasang. And you see here a more detailed outline of the different activities that need to happen across the period of maybe 25 years, 10 years, 25 years, and the different stakeholders that need to be engaged or really put into place to achieve these different tasks. So this is the process that we did, and this is the pathway that we developed. So you might be thinking, so what was the point of it? This just looks like an exercise on its own. But the thing is, like, because the issues were really identified by the stakeholders themselves and the pathways were co-created by the stakeholders, including the stakeholders that have the power to make the change, it really gave us a leverage to incorporate all these different plans, these anticipatory plans, addressing all these potential future challenges that are going to come in our future, and really put it into perspective and integrate it into plans and policies. So some of the outcomes that have come immediately is that, like, in the budget set for herding and breeding and improvement, improvement. So initially the budget was 10 lakh. But now it has been increased to 20 lakh. And some of the actions that were identified that were required to make these changes, like developing grazing paths, quarantining, shed constructions, have already been it has already been implemented and already underway. So I just want to highlight again, like, using this process of foresight, we not just look into the past trends, but also the potential future challenges, and incorporated those future challenges into the present pathways to develop a more resilient outcome for the future. So with that, I'd like to end my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sabrini, for presenting the yak herding case and associated things, and how you are working with communities and anticipatory kind of action, and the approach you have adopted earlier. And that is a case here also, and people are they have heard it with interest, because that is an important livelihood and migration issue as well. Thank you so much. Now we have Awais Ahmed from the community. Let us hear from him what is the community perspective. And you have been part of the process with Professor Babar, myself, and Awais.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank SDPI for organizing this important session and giving us as a mountain community a voice to discuss here. My name is Awais Ahmed. Basically, I am from Chitral, considered one of the most vulnerable, climate vulnerable region of Pakistan. Chitral lies in the heart of Hindu Kush range. As we all know, the Hindu Kush and the surrounding mountain region are changing at a faster pace as compared to other parts of the country, making the region more vulnerable. The vulnerability of the mountain communities and mountain ecosystem are not new, but due to these recent climate challenges, the intensity and frequency of the climate-induced disasters has increased, making the communities more vulnerable. But unfortunately, our responses are mostly reactive. We wait for the disaster to happen and then rush for the relief and rehabilitation activities. Yes, for the marginalized communities, relief is important for them, but it cannot build resilience. In fact, it often make the people more dependent and less prepared. That's why I strongly believe that anticipatory action is the way forward, especially for the mountain communities like ours. Anticipatory action should be threshold-based. We must define clear triggering points, releasing early warning fund or early warning warnings based on the specific rainfall levels, temperature rise, or snowfall thresholds, because in mountain regions like in Chitral, time is not counted in hours or days, but it counts in minutes and seconds. Once a hazard begins, it can reach communities within minutes, leaving very little time for the response. So secondly, there is an urgent need to introduce parametric insurance models, specifically for the crop, livestock, and household assets. These tools can provide financial relief once defined thresholds are crossed, helping families recover faster without depending entirely on humanitarian aids. Thirdly, we must integrate the indigenous knowledge into our early warning systems and policy framework. For example, this year recently, after the Buner incident, the terminology cloudburst has become very famous and we discuss it a lot. But in Chitral, we experienced a similar event back in 2007. So it's not new for us, which claim our more than 20 lives. So the local knowledge about cloud behavior, wind direction, and changes in glaciers can serve as a valuable early indicators. We should not ignore these lived experiences. Another critical area is watershed management. Many of the floods in Pakistan plains originate from the mountain catchment areas. If we can restore and manage these watershed properly through vegetation cover, slope stabilization, nature-based solutions, then we can reduce the erosion in the upper catchment area. Definitely, we can reduce the intensity of the flood in the downstream as well. In addition, we must train the mountain communities as a first responders. We all know during disaster, the response agencies often face delays due to the terrain and the road blockages in the mountain areas. Through the empowering the local community with training, equipments, and early warning system, we can save lives before outside help arrives in the areas. In short, we must shift from the reactive to proactive approach, from relief to resilience. There is an urgent need for anticipatory action for the mountain region in Pakistan. Before I conclude, I want to highlight one of the overlooked areas, overlooked aspect. When we talk about the loss and damages in climate change, we talk about mostly the economic losses like destroy homes, crops, infrastructure. But in the mountain communities like in Chitral, there are the indigenous people are residing over the centuries. Due to these climatic changes, their traditions, social norms, and community cohesion are also eroding due to climate stresses, leading to migration, cultural shifts, and even conversion of their religion. These social and cultural dimensions must be part of our adaptation and anticipatory action discussions. So my humble request to all of the policymakers, researchers, and field practitioners, let's make a collective pledge together to make the mountain communities more resilient, because they are the front line of the climate change and yet too often to receive the support.
Directly linked to this thing is very important. And I guess most of these points which you have raised already are part of other discussion with NDM and other. So Idris have also mentioned about community, but this is good that at least you have shared your experience which you have been having with the process and before that. Thank you, Awais, once again. Yeah, thank you. Now I would request Mia Mohammad Junaid Saab to give WaterAid's perspective, because as an INGO, you also connected to the communities. So your perspective.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Shafkat Sahab, SDPI team for organizing this session. I mean, speaking after Awais will be like very difficult because some of the points that I wanted to touch upon, what can be done at the community level, because WaterAid mostly work with communities, local organizations as well. So some of the anticipatory actions I would wanted to talk about have already been touched upon as well. So again, thank you. It's a privilege to be here. It's a very important discussion. The Hindu Kush Himalaya region holds immense ecological and social importance, needless to say. But of course, as we said, it is facing a number of climate-related impacts ranging from droughts, floods, water-related issues as well, and that is basically increasing the vulnerability of already the communities which are already climate impacted and vulnerable in the region as well. So the question here is whether we can sort of adapt or not, but the question is how early and how inclusively we can act to protect lives, livelihood, and ecosystems. Within WaterAid, what we do, the anticipatory action, we look at with the lens of gender inclusive, climate resilient WASH, making sure that communities, vulnerable communities, women, they are at the heart and at the center of everything we do. And then when I say climate resilient, we have already talked about it, making sure that all the water supply schemes, sanitation infrastructure, that is able to withstand climate change impacts as well. Without that foundation, early warning and adaptation measures lose meaning as well. And we believe that, WASH, water supply, sanitation, hygiene, it is very much closely linked to health impacts, nutrition impacts, education, and of course migration, and it does impact household economy as well. So if WASH infrastructures and communities are not resilient to withstand the impact of climate change, then definitely that will impact the vulnerabilities of the community itself as well. Now we have examples of working in Chitral. We have examples of working in Swat as well. What we are doing that we are making sure that water supply schemes, sanitation schemes, they are made climate resilient. And when I say climate resilient, I'll repeat what Awais has already said. We are making sure that, we have improved source protection. We are strengthening watershed management and training village WASH communities as well. That's very important. I mean, the communities who are basically looking at WASH infrastructure as well, they should be trained. They should be women-led as well. I mean, we are talking about inclusive water WASH committees as well. So we are making sure that the committees are women-led. They are in the decision-making authority. And we have helped reduce disruptions and speed up recovery after climate shocks as well. I'll also talk about some of the example of projects that we are doing in southern regions, in Badin, Thatta, or also in Balochistan. We are using or introducing solar-powered and elevated water systems so that the impacts of floods and droughts can be mitigated, and ensuring that continuity of services when people need them the most is ensured as well. These are not large-scale projects, but they show that anticipatory, resilient action and community at the community level with local ownership and inclusive leadership does count. And of course, we don't have control on transboundary water as well. We cannot have big projects as well, but we can have nature-based solutions as well at the community level, be it rainwater harvesting, be it groundwater recharge, be it sort of, storing or managing groundwater aquifer and some of the watershed. There are nature-based solutions as well. We talked at length about indigenous communities' knowledge as well. We can come up with fancy plans as well, but the indigenous communities are there for centuries as well. They know when glaciers are melting, when there is change in the water flows, when there is groundwater sort of, the level is dropping as well. So they have over the years a number of ideas and innovations that definitely we should be accounting when we are looking at hazard mapping, when we are doing seasonal calendars, when we are looking at response triggers as well. So we should definitely be looking at indigenous knowledge, and their voices should be included. Examples alone aren't enough. We also need to rethink our systems. Current adaptation strategies still rely heavily on reactive measures. I mean, we have been talking again and again about that. Relief after floods, rehabilitation after droughts. That's the thing that we are doing. But to truly foster anticipatory action, we must invest in early triggers, community capacity, predictive systems, and connect climate data with local decision making as well. Idris talked about risk communication as well. It's very important that if there are climate information available that are translated into local languages, there are interpretation of that at the community level, at the grassroots level as well. So community knows that if there is some prediction as well, what does that mean for them, and they should take like sort of anticipatory actions as well. This is where policy coherence become vital. Integrate anticipatory WASH and local adaptation plan into provincial and district development frameworks and align them with national adaptation plans can institutionalize readiness, not just response. And lastly, I would also talk about financing shifts, making resources available as well. So we talked about anticipatory action. We should be making sure that we need financing and resources are made available for preparedness, local adaptation, and resilient infrastructure rather than sort of reactive measures as well. And just to conclude, anticipatory action in the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region will succeed only if it's locally led, gender responsive, and rooted in essential services like WASH. Climate resilience is not a technical fix. It's a governance, equity, system challenge, and we have to meet it together and communities at the center. Thank you.
Thank you, Junesa. I think good that you have connected the whole bit of things, policy and local level things, and particularly the use of indigenous knowledge, recognizing their presence, and particularly the climate resilient WASH. I think that's an area we should be in the limelight. Thank you for your perspective. Now I would request my friend Kanchan Mani Dixit from Nepal, so that you can share with us your experience.
Thank you, Dr. Saib, and thank you everybody for here listening. We've been since 2001. We've been working at the intersection of climate change, climate science, social system, and the governance at the local level, and we are working heavily with the community, empowering them, empowering their governance practices, and even the supporting them, supporting the entrepreneurships. If I can share, we are engaged with one of the urban resilience project that emphasizes disaster preparedness and climate change in one of the municipality in the east of Kathmandu Valley. So there, basically, we have done number of activities like from policy to practice. We have like providing policy support and building capacity of the local officials, even the mayors and other municipality officials. We have mainstreaming climate change and DRR into the municipal system. One of the interesting things that we introduced in the municipality was that we introduced urban DRR self-assessment tool. It was developed by UNDRR. So that tool basically helped the municipality to have self-assessment among their programs and plans and devise, they identify the strength, weakness, and make a necessary amendment in their programs. We also provided support to the women, particularly who were affected by COVID and the earthquake, 2015 earthquake in Nepal. So these are basically small SMEs led by women, which were vulnerable. So we try to bring them up because we think that building resilience of a city is not only managing disaster. We need to encompass everything that comes in area. We are also working heavily on nature-based solutions. We did research and we implement in the same piloting on the same municipalities. We also provide a small grant to the small entrepreneurs. Besides, we provide these tunnels and we provide technical knowledge and other information on how to producing organic fertilizers, organic pesticides to the women groups so that, they can build resilience and they can contribute to the society. And regarding risk mapping, we encourage the local communities to sit together and have a risk mapping sessions and design an action matrix that will help them in the adaptation. We also help the businesses in the municipality to prepare their plan and also, develop business continuity plans. So overall, if you look at the activity that we are doing is basically in enriching every aspect and every encompassing all, people like from marginal communities, from the government officials and the community themselves. We also provided early cash assistance to some of the communities, and it really worked during the disaster, where they can save their valuables and even the livestock. Regarding the policy integration, our experiences shows that to scale up anticipatory action, it requires 3 shifts. First, institutional, integrating AA into local planning, not as a pilot, but as a core component of the system. And the financial is the municipality need to have some kind of contingency fund to absorb the risks during this disaster event. And finally, we need to have this community enriched with the knowledge so that they can convert the data into practice so that the lives can be shared. It's working?
Mic is working.
Okay. Just to sum up this, can I have lights?
Help you with that. Nice one.
Okay. Just to sum up my, argument that we really need to have a system thinking approach while we deal with the community, especially when we talk about this anticipatory action. We really need to look from the systemic perspective. Like there are a couple of issues. If you look at the disaster, there are some patterns that are making the local level vulnerable or local people vulnerable. So we really need to identify those patterns, and there are some systematic, there are some underlying structures that are supporting those patterns, and there are the mental models. So we all will need to identify what people think and how they perceive disaster. So that we can build on their language. And finally, I like to emphasize on the language, because we use different language from those that the community understand. So we really need to find a common language, the easy language, so that we can convey our message, the information gathered by the academics, the policy terminologies, so that we can make it simple and provide it to the community. So I think if we can get this thing done from the systemic level, and we can emphasize on the language, we can have a good system developed. And finally, disasters are always unfinished business of development. So it will be there always. So we really need to get prepared for everything we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kansan. I think if you look at all the discussion which our friend has done, Kansan Saab, all focus on one word. After everything there, that goes to municipality, that goes to local. And that is precisely because when their disaster management system 10 years back was under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Later on, I was part of the regional team when I was working on an international position. So we have the draft map on the NDRMA, their National Disaster Risk Management Authority. In that, within the authority, everything is focused on local. That is why, if you see Kathmandu 5 years back, you would see it's dirty, it's not environmentally clean. When you see now the role of role of the mayor of Kathmandu city, there are two. Other district has other mayor. He's a young guy. He is clean. You go to Tamil and other areas, you will find it's neat and clean and everything environment friendly. So, which means there is a lesson for us actually. Why I am focusing on it. There is a lesson that everything at local level is the response. Now, unfortunately, when there was a flood or everything, everybody was saying without knowing what NDMA is doing. By NDMA is an policy or organ, which the Rishabh also mentioned, it is the local level. But unfortunately, at local level, our DDMA is our deputy commissioner. They are do only reactive based work. But in Nepal's model, because I am telling you because I was part of this process when the change was taking place there. So everything was local at that time, even VDC level, Village Development Council level. VDC was the basic unit. So unless we go local and strengthen our DDMAs or local level work, then certainly we cannot, be achieving that level of achievement. That's why in our anticipatory action strategy, we are also focusing on the local level, recommendations. Thank you. I'm coming to after the panel. So now, Madam Aisha Khan, over to you as closing remarks, and also you have heard everything from there. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shafkat Munir, for inviting me to be part of this conversation. In the interest of time, I'm going to try and be very brief and very focused. And what I'm going to share with you is not theory. It's what I have observed with my lived experience of working in mountain communities for the last 2 decades. I've also been very fortunate to travel to Bhutan and Nepal and India, and I know our own mountain regions very intimately. So what I'm going to share with you is a result of that experience that I have watching communities dealing with disasters and helping rebuilding their coping capacities. The first thing I think that we need to understand when we talk about anticipatory disaster risk reduction in the Hindu Kush, and I will use the K for Karakoram, not just say Hindu Kush Himalaya, but the Hindu Kush Karakoram Himalaya region, is the environmental complexity of that region and the high spatial and temporal variability. The HKH steep elevation and gradient and microclimatic changes make it extremely hard to downscale global or national forecasts into usable local predictions. This is very evident. I've seen this time and again. And even small catchments sometimes drastically have very different effects, which sometimes gives you false alarms and sometimes you miss the triggers. Also, because of the nature of the topography, we have to understand that hardly ever do hazards happen in isolation. For example, if there's a glacial lake outburst, flood, it is triggered by heat waves and landslides. Or if there are droughts, they're followed by flash floods. So when you have a response mechanism that is catered to deal with one disaster and does not take into account the entire spectrum of that disaster, then it becomes very difficult for the handling agencies to manage these things. Also, we need to take into account the uncertainty of climate change. We don't know when the event will happen, and also it is a dynamic threat. So that means that it requires constant monitoring. It means upgrading the level of the threat by following it, and also to have the response mechanism that you need for every level of threat already in place for you to respond to it more effectively. The other thing that we have or we suffer from is very limited data for forecasting and modeling. There's a big gap in there. And there's a very sparse and uneven observational network when we talk about the HKH. So when we talk about, for example, limited data and cross-border exchanges, we see that transboundary river basins, especially Indus, because of India and Pakistan, we face political and data sovereignty barriers as well, which prevent real-time information sharing, which is very, very critical for anticipatory action. We also have fragmented mandates where disaster management, water, agriculture, meteorology often operate in silos with little coordination between forecast producers and response implementers. There is no unified anticipatory action protocol that is aligned with the trigger mechanisms for financing and decision-making change. What we need to do over here is to have certain things placed in order which will help us to deal with disasters, anticipate them, and respond to them more effectively. One is the institutionalization of the anticipatory action protocols that define triggers, roles, and fund release mechanisms. The second one is blending science and indigenous knowledge for local calibration of warnings, and I think that fact has been highlighted by speakers before me. Then we have to promote regional trust building for shared data and joint disaster simulation exercises. And finally, aligning anticipatory DRR with long-term adaptation and development planning, especially in agriculture, water, and food systems. Now, financing mechanism is something I'm going to touch upon briefly because that becomes the link that provides the implementing or responding agencies with the resources that they need to do their work more effectively. Now, investing in anticipatory disaster response actions is not very easy because it is an invisible investment that you're making into a future deterministic event that will happen perhaps next year, perhaps the year after. So financiers don't see the immediate results of the funds that they have provided to you. And lastly, I think I would like to touch a little bit on the geomorphology of rivers, because when we talk about the HKH region, we have river basins, 10 major river basins that it supports. And those support, in turn, 2 million people and 2 billion people directly and indirectly. To address the geomorphology impacts of climate change on the HKH, we need a holistic river basin approach. This approach recognizes or should recognize the interconnectedness of the entire river system, from glaciers and catchments to floodplains and deltas, and integrate hydrology with geomorphology, land use, and socioeconomic factors. For this, we will need to move from piecemeal actions to more holistic approaches, which will require an integration of science, engineering, ecosystem conservation, and community participation. Lastly, my last 2 points will be about loss and damage and the relationship between disaster risk reduction. Disaster management authorities should be consulted, and they should review all the loss and damage projects that Pakistan is building and soliciting for support, because we need a 3-tiered mechanism over here. First is the emergency mechanism, which responds to the immediate need for relief. The second one is for the rebuilding and rehabilitation, in which you have your construction codes and you do your land use planning, etc. And the third one is for resilience, and that has to be anticipatory action, because if you have not factored that, then you will keep repeating those disasters, and every time a disaster happens, it amplifies and magnifies the impacts, both social and economics, dragging people into deeper poverty. So finally, to summarize, I will say that adopting anticipatory DRR in the HKH is less a technical challenge and more of a socio-political challenge. The region is topographically fragmented. We have data scarcity, we have climate uncertainty, and that makes prediction very difficult. But the deeper barriers lie in financing, coordination, and inclusivity. Only when we have anticipatory systems that are locally owned, and this thing was touched upon by other speakers, the need for local ownership, regionally linked and backed by flexible financing mechanisms, can they translate into a foresight that can build resilience, ensuring mountain communities are prepared before disaster strikes and not rescued afterwards. So there are a lot of issues which are interconnected over here, and a lot of things that we talk about. Oves mentioned them because he is from the mountain areas and he perhaps understands the reality of mountain communities as and when they face disasters. These things look very good on paper, but we do not have the institutional capacity to take them to the grassroots community to be available to them as and when they need it. Mostly it is reactive. So far, we have not moved into the anticipatory stage, and that will need a lot of homework from NDMA as well to be very specific in how they engage with different regions, because Pakistan, unlike, for example, Bangladesh, is not a very homogeneous geography. We have high mountains and we have the deltas. So we start from a very high altitude and come down to the sea level. So each area has to have its own very geographic specific response mechanism, and the cultures and tradition of the people need to be taken into account, because a lot of the things, and our colleague from Nepal, Mr. Kanchan, talked about that, the language is very important, because if the language is not resonating with that culture, then there will be no ownership. So we have to take all these factors into account and move towards building our local capacity, reaching out for regional collaboration, and then together taking that to the multilateral platforms to get the kind of technical support and financial support and other means of implementation that we need to make South Asia resilient, because we cannot make one country in the region resilient without taking all the countries together forward and securing the well-being of all the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Asha, for very comprehensive analysis and your thoughts. I think you are very right when you said that it's not just the communities issue, it's a socio-political and geopolitical as well. When you mentioned the cross-border, water issues and other shared thing, and you rightly mentioned that this cannot alone be solved unless the other side, because similar communities are living there. So it's a regional or kind of sub-regional issue. And this issue also came up yesterday in discussions as well, that if in the region there is a trouble from one side, so what other member countries can, how they can coordinate without if one is not coming up. So that is a really important area which you touched upon. Thank you very much, always enlightening us from your talk. So I know there is already 1 o'clock, but still I am not that cruel that I should not ask you to even have a couple of questions. But my request is that very brief, direct question.
had only three practical points. In response to Mr. Adris Masood and OSML Saab, that primitive communities in Pamir and Hindu Kush mountains, they are trying to regenerate the glaciers where the glaciers are melting. They say this is male, this is female glacier, and they can easily identify with their great primitive skills. And I think it is a cryospheric type of science, which is based on environmental factors. And departments can take advantage of this. This is very primitive exercise which they are doing. Maybe Mr. Mani can be knowing this technique in Nepal in high mountains and Pamir and Hindu Kush mountains, where they are doing this for the last many centuries. Second, grazing of grasses on the mountain slopes by the population of growing animals. Maybe I think Masood Saab, few departments of Pakistan Agriculture Research Council are working in Gilgit and Baltistan, and few talks can be given to them for the solution of this project, like a few fodder crops and few fodder bushes and fodder grasses can be grown over there for the sheep and for the yokes. And third, I will be liking to share with Mani Saab that I think our Indian friends might be going to eliminate the gust of smoke from the iron industry of Bhopal from India, which is causing a long negative effects on the Himalayas above 15,000 feet high. They are absorbing the heat and causing glacier meltings. And likewise, the eruption of methane gases alongwise from the flocks of livestock in India.
Thank you, sir. Well noted. Your contribution is well noted. Thank you. Any question, please? I guess no, everybody is ready for namaz. So with this, I would thank the Professor Babar, Aisha Sahaba, Idris Saab, Junaid Saab, Kanchan Bhai, and Sabrini online. And thank you, all of you, those who have listened very carefully and for the intervention. Thank you very much. Thank you.